22. Hoi-Young concentration camp was a prison camp in North Korea that was reported to have been closed in 2012. The prison's official name is Kwaliso, number 22. The camp was a maximum security prison that is completely isolated from the outside world. It is surrounded by an inner 3,300 volt electric fence and an outer barbed wire fence, with traps and hidden nails between the two. The camp was patrolled by roughly 1,000 guards and between 500 and 600 agents. The guards being equipped with automatic rifles, hand grenades and trained guard dogs. What's worse is the prisoners are detained for life, never being released. Prisoners get 180 grams of corn per meal twice a day, with almost no vegetables or meat, except rats, snakes, frogs and even insects that they catch. Kwon Hyuk, a security guard, reported human experimentation carried out inside the jail. He described a sealed gas chamber where he witnessed a family with 2 children die from being test subjects for an asphyxiant gas.
Karandaroo Prison. Karandaroo Penitentiary is today remembered as one of the worst prisons in the history of the modern world, and the place of one of the largest human rights violations in the history of Brazil. Built because of the demands of the 1819 Criminal Code, this prison became so overcrowded at the end of the 20th century that inmates managed to live by their own rules, easily overpowering the guards that worked there. During the peak of its use, this prison housed over 8,000 prisoners, with only 1,000 prison officers trying to control them very unsuccessfully. Conditions inside the walls were horrific. Gags ruled every inch of the prison's blocks. Malnutrition was common. Diseases and injuries were treated by minimal medical staff, mostly always without any type of painkillers. And a majority of inmates were suffering from HIV and other transmittable diseases. In 1992, the penitentiary became the place of a prison riot that ended with the death of over 100 prisoners, leading military police to storm the prison and massacre inmates.
Tadmor Prison. Tadmor Prison is situated in the desert eastern Syria, 200 kilometers northeast of Damascus. Tadmor is renowned for one of the worst prisons in the world, and its reputation of abuse, torture and neglect have caused much concern for human rights activists. Throughout the 1980s, the prison housed thousands of political and civilian Syrian prisoners and is known to have inflicted a great amount of suffering on these inmates. During these periods, it was known for harsh conditions, excessive torture and summary executions. The Syrian poet Faraz Barekta, who was held as a political prisoner at Tadmor for 5 years, labelled the place as a kingdom of death and madness. Prisoners were subjected to medieval forms of torture and execution, such as being dragged to death or even being cut to pieces with an axe. While some occurred because of acts of insubordination, other prisoners were chosen at random to keep the prisoners in a constant and perpetual state of terror and fear.
Bangkawang Prison. Bangkawang Central Prison is a men's prison in Nonthaburi Province, Thailand, on the Chao Phraya River. It is a part of the Department of Corrections, and is the location of the men's death row and the execution chamber of Thailand. As of 2009, the prison had 4,163 prisoners. It is a harsh prison that handles death row and long sentence prisoners, and all prisoners are required to wear leg irons for their first 3 months of the sentence. Death row inmates were made to have their leg irons permanently welded to their skin, although this practice ended in 2003. Prisoners receive only 1 bowl of rice and vegetable soup each day. Any other food they have must be purchased from the prison canteen. Poor prisoners do chores for richer prisoners or prison guards to earn money for food. As of 1995, there was 1 man from the United Kingdom on death row at Bangkawang, Alan John Davis. He was the first European to receive a death sentence in Thailand. He was freed after 17 years in the hell of the prison, returning to the UK in 2007 after being granted amnesty by the King.
La Saboneta. Venezuelan prisons are notorious for their brutally poor living conditions, violence, and frequent disease outbreaks due to overcrowding and poor hygiene. Once at Sabaneta, 700 prisoners died of cholera because of appalling health conditions. In this prison, there are over 3,700 inmates housed in a facility designed for no more than 700 prisoners. The corrupt system that operates offers preferential treatment to prisoners with money and power. Those who have neither, which is a majority of the prison population, are forced to sleep in hammocks in the corridor, as the cells are given to someone who has more funding. There are no set activities in Sabaneta, with inmates being left to their own devices. This often descends into chaos and extreme violence, with many human rights experts claiming that this behaviour is directly linked with the lack of mental stimulation, alongside living in cramped and unclean conditions. Some items confiscated from prisoners in the jail include 105 firearms, 92 homemade stab weapons, 75 knives, 5 grenades, 2 mortars, tear gas canisters, 12 kilograms of drugs, and 135 mobile phones. Wow, now that does seem a lot to sneak in.
Gautama Central Prison. Described as hell on earth, all prisoners were forced to eat, sleep, live, rot and die, squeezed together with 4 men per square yard in the roofless brick box called Gautama Prison. Designed to hold 400 people, the population exploded to over 7,000 in the mid-1990s in the wake of the Rwandan genocide. And all prisoners that were incarcerated were left there for dead. Amongst dysentery and despair, the prisoners stood cramped together under all weather conditions, choking on the fumes of cooking fires and suffering from gangrene. They even resorted to eating each other's flesh and organs out of the desperation. Let's just hope you never commit a crime in Rwanda and get sent here.
Alcatraz. The Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, or the United States Penitentiary, was a maximum high-security federal prison on Alcatraz Island, 1.25 miles off the coast of San Francisco, California, which operated from August 11, 1934 until March 21, 1963. The main prison was built between 1910 and 1912. Alcatraz was designed to hold prisoners who continuously caused trouble at other federal prisons. One of the most known and notorious prisons, Alcatraz, housed over 1,500 of America's most ruthless criminals, including Al Capone, Robert Stroud, George Machine Gun Kelly, Mickey Cohen, and Alvin Creepy Karpis, who served more time locked in Alcatraz than any other inmate. The cells were primitive. They lacked privacy, with only a bed, a desk, a wash basin and toilet on the back wall. D Block housed the worst inmates, and 5 cells were designated as the Hole, where badly behaving prisoners would be sent for punishment, which was very often brutal. Today, the penitentiary is a public museum and is one of San Francisco's major tourist attractions, bringing over 1.5 million people every year.
Bataka Prison. Bataka Prison is a prison in the Tverskoy district of central Moscow, Russia. It was a central prison in Tsarist Imperial Russia. During Soviet times, it held many political prisoners, but currently Bataka remains the largest of Moscow remand prisons, where overcrowding continues to be a problem. Its famous inmates include influential revolutionary poet Vladimir Mayakovsky, the Russian revolutionary Nikolai Bormann, and the founder of the KGB, Felix Derinsky. After the October Revolution, Bataka remained a place of internment for political prisoners and a transfer camp for the people sentenced to be sent to the Gulag.
Guantanamo Bay. The Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp is a United States military prison located within Guantanamo Bay Naval Base, also referred to as just Guantanamo or GTMO. It is based on the coast of Cuba. Since its opening, inmates have been detained without trial indefinitely. Several detainees have also alleged that torture is a regular practice in the prison. The operations of this camp are considered to be a major breach of human rights by Amnesty International. The camp was established by President George W. Bush's administration team in 2002 during the War on Terror. His successor, President Barack Obama, promised to close it, but was met with strong opposition, with Congress passing laws to prohibit detainees in Guantanamo Bay being imprisoned in the US. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to keep the prison camp open indefinitely in May 2018. The first prisoner was transferred, reducing the number of inmates to just 40.
Stanley Prison. Stanley Prison is based in Stanley, Hong Kong, and is one of the 6 maximum security facilities in Hong Kong. Built in 1937, Stanley Prison is currently the oldest institution still in service. It houses both male convicted prisoners and male adult remand prisoners. The maximum capacity of the prison is 1,714 and has over 800 staff and officers. At the time of its construction, it was considered to be one of the finest prisons in the British Empire. It was a modern structure built of stone, concrete and steel, and consisted of 6 cell blocks set behind an 18-foot wall, and was designed to house 1,500 prisoners. Before Hong Kong officially abolished the death penalty in 1933, Stanley Prison had been a place of execution that saw the execution of criminals between 1946 and 1966. Hong Kong fell to the invading Japanese on Christmas Day 1941. During this, the grounds of the prison were used as part of a Stanley internment camp. It was a place of torture and execution. Those who were caught were sent there, and soon the population grew to over 3,000. Nearly 600 prisoners of war and civilians were killed by the Japanese and are buried in the Stanley War Cemetery.